Hey everyone, welcome to HITRUST Secrets. I am Sue Richards, joined with Stephen Dufour and Donna Dodson. We've also got off camera, we've got Dennis Palmer and Vin Kata joining via mobile device. So welcome everyone to this edition of HITRUST Secrets. And does anybody have anything they want to talk through?
I've been out of it for
Yeah.
like a month and a half, so I don't know. I've seen all the high trust news, but I don't know all the details. There was some kind of partnership with rural healthcare in Georgia or something like that.
Yeah, yeah, very, very exciting news. So CMS has authorized some funding to help out rural hospitals across the U.S. I'm not the lead on the program, so I'm not going to speak to all the other details, but I'll give you the high level. Basically, we're partnering with some folks down at one of the universities in Georgia, and they are helping the rural hospitals bring on the high trust control set, and they're doing it very programmatically. That's a really neat program. That's the first of what we hope is going to be many adoptions across for the high trust framework. I've been on a bunch of coordinating calls with them. Great folks. They're making it very, very easy for those folks without the additional IT resources to come in and get their IT secured.
Excellent. That's
Can you
great.
divulge who the lead is on that?
I could tell you Ryan Patrick could give you more details. He's he's
All
he's the lead.
right, I'll send him a message right now.
Yeah, yeah. We could probably get him on next week or in the next week or two to talk about it. But yeah, the program's up and running, and they've been really great to work with.
I was wondering what Dennis's cup
talking,
say.
but we can't hear you.
Dennis, what
Can
did
you
your
not?
cup say?
Oh
While,
my!
Susan comes off mute.
It's a Denny's cup, and it says, "Don't you wish on some mornings you could just inhale coffee like air?"
Hmm.
The other Denny's cup, which meant an unfortunate demise, was Rome was built in a day, but if they Rome wasn't built in a day, but if they had coffee, it may have been.
Very good.
Maybe.
No, I was on mute and I was telling Stephen that he was on mute because I saw him speaking. So
Hmm.
that's all
Okay.
I was. And I was like, oh
I
wait,
talk
I'm
to
on mute too.
myself often, like I'm over here texting Ryan and harassing him,
Oh, okay, perfect.
and I tend to speak what I'm typing often, so like I'll just go on mute again.
Yeah, it looks like you're very engaged, other than the fact that you're looking down. So it was sleep talking, I guess. But
So just
so
just
I just go ahead.
well, very off topic. I was going to say, Stephen or Ryan could probably give your son hints about certain aspects of the Army Rangers, and I'm not sure what other programs he was in, but I know was he the 101st or 82nd? I know he was airborne, so he could probably give your son some tips on navigating the Armory infrastructure.
Excellent. So I was just going to say earlier today, I was part of the audience for High Trust for Third-Party Risk Management that
Oh,
Gerard
fun.
Pickering and Rusty Jordan had done. And it was interesting, having worked a couple of different times now, I've got a client that will be going high trust certification, but it's not there yet. So still is answering the custom questionnaires that these different organizations or prospective clients are looking to get. So hopefully a lot of that will be alleviated with the HITRUST certification. But it was interesting because they were asking, well, how do you, as the consumer of your third parties, what reports do you usually see? And it was funny because most people were talking SOC 2, which again, isn't really a shortcut to looking at any sort of validation of a third party because you still have to read the whole report. And so I was like, obviously working closer and closer to try to push more high trust certifications and high trust customers. Because I know when I look at a vendor and I'm like, oh, they're high trust certified, I will ask the question, well, which certification and all that. But at least it seems like a baseline. So I don't have to walk through their trust center or their SOC 2 report or whatever. And it also helps with, one of the other things that as we were walking through this training today, I was thinking, you still always have to have that evidence of the security assessment. Where did you what did you look at? What did you validate? What findings or concerns did you have, et cetera? So it's, third-party risk management. It's not one and done using HITRUST for third-party risk management because you still do have that due diligence to do, but it definitely helps with the timing of walking through a 60, 80-page report and all. One of the other things go ahead.
Sorry, you mentioned something, and I wanted to just kind of put it out if we run out of topics I kind of wanted to discuss was looking at other people's trust centers. As you know, we released the notification that we're going to our report center 2. So I'm curious who has seen any, questions about how that functionality is going to work or what it's going to do for you. I'll leave that there if we wanted to hit that later.
Yeah, I thought, I'm hoping that in the next session or two, we can actually get a demo of it from you or from somebody at HITRUST as far as, a sneak peek or whatever of when it is, because they did talk a little bit about that, but didn't have any kind of screens or
Oh, okay. Okay.
examples and things. So yeah, that would definitely be nice. I don't want to put you on the
So
spot and go,
if you look in the advisory, so HITRUST Assurance Advisory 2026-004, 04, I think. I believe that has screenshots in it.
Oh, okay.
And some pretty good descriptions, but Susan definitely willing to take a few minutes and put together just a quick deck on the kind of the functionality of it and the purpose.
Okay.
At a very high level, what it's going to do is it's going to eliminate the need to download and then separately share the assessment deliverables, whether that be an insights report, HITRUST certification letter, HITRUST certification report. And it's going to give you visibility, like if you have multiple vendors, you could actually go in if your vendors are certified, and they'll all pull up in the same panel, and it will show their certification, what's available for download, things like that. If you download one of the deliverables, it actually will be watermarked, downloaded by Susan at sorry, I forgot your company name.
Yeah.
Downloaded and for use of Susan Richards at x.org, but they're very tailored. So it's good. There's none of this. Is the certification valid still? Is it legal, or is it a real certification?
Mm-hmm.
We're taking that out of having the customers have to do that and putting it on ourselves and saying, look, we are saying this is the deliverable. This was done. This is HITRUST saying it. So it adds legitimacy to anything that the relying entity would see.
Okay.
And it's included.
Yeah.
There's no add-on or price increase to use this. It's included as part of your access.
Yeah. And what I like about it is it's similar to a trust center because you have to, as the organization, you choose who can or can't see it. So it's not like it's everybody sees it or nobody sees it. You actually can choose if you've got a business partner or a prospective client, you can say, yes, come in and take a look at this, but you don't necessarily want your competitors to know where you are with it and all. So.
Well, and it's interesting you mentioned that. There's a couple of different configuration settings in there so that if you wanted to make it publicly visible, anyone can go in and see kind of high level details of, yes, ABC company has a certification to get any of the deliverables to review. And this is where, the NDA or whatever comes in place. To do that, there's actually separate permission sets. It's very discrete permission sets. So you have a lot of tailoring on who can see what, and it's down to person, right? So, or organization, sorry. It's down to the organization. So once an organization has an authorized view, then the same email domain would be able to see that, but they still have to authenticate in, right? It's not a free for all.
Right.
We do have boundaries in place to make sure that it's not abused.
Yeah, I really like that
on
summary. So that, basically,
yeah.
I think that'll be very powerful.
I'm excited. We've been looking at ways to do this for a number of years now. And we looked at, kind of digital certification, digital certificates, credentialing programs, things like that. And this is one of the things that we ended up with to make sure that the reader of the report knows that it's a true HITRUST report, things like that.
So do you have an actual ETA? I know it's sometime in September.
It turns on September 10th. So anything, I forget the official wording, any report published draft after September 10th will utilize the new system automatically.
Okay.
Any of them before September 10th You'll still have the ability to download separately directly through the MyCSF interface. And optionally, if you want to include use of the report center, the functionality will be turned on for those. And that's retroactive.
Okay.
Yeah.
And now is it only for those that have gone through a validated assessment, or is it also for those that are in progress?
So two different feature sets. It will actually show so that the final deliverables will be for anything that has a certification. There are still views if you wanted to share status, like I don't remember I showed it before, but there is still a view to show status
Okay.
progress through the chain. It would just show like in progress, answering assessment, validation, submitted for QA, things like that.
Right.
And that view will still be available. And that's available today.
Oh, through Report Center? So if I've got one that I'm in the middle of like answering the assessment, it'll actually show.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So what you'll do is you'll go up. There's two ways to access it. So any of the resources who are assigned assessment lead can go in and activate the visibility assessment lead or subscriber administrator.
Okay.
All you do is go in the name and security section,
Okay.
and there's a section up there that says enable visibility. I forget the exact words, but it's
Okay.
it's pretty obvious. It's very, very top of the page. And then what you'll do is you'll select visibility. If you want to preview, it will show you the page in a pop-up module inside of MyCSF first
Okay.
to show you what the person viewing it outside would see. And then it'll have a little copy button. You copy the link, you send it to whoever you want to share your status with, check the block, and away it goes.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah, it's really neat.
Nice.
Now that one,
I
just one
didn't know that was
caveat, that doesn't have the current report center restrictions on it.
Okay.
So if you made it visible and shared the link, right now, there's not a lot of restrictions on it. They still have to authenticate. They still have to use like a valid email address. We use two-factor, things like that. So there's protections on it. It's just not as robust as you're going to see here after the 10th.
Okay. All right.
But there's more.
Well, good.
There's going to be more functionality, more data available. So
Yes.
we wanted to make sure we had those additional protections turned on.
Excellent.
Will
Yeah,
this
I'm
have
excited.
any change or change in impact to things like the shared responsibility matrix or inheritance? Will it have a connection, or are those going to just remain distinctly separate as they are today?
Right now, those are completely separate. The report center visibility, the only thing it's going to change is how you receive the final deliverables. So none of the testing, none of the inheritance, none of the other functions will, like literally nothing else. We put it in bold print. Nothing else about the assessment process will change.
Mhm.
This is only how you receive the final deliverable.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the report itself won't change. It's just where it's available.
Extremely slight changes. They're actually detailed in that assurance advisory. Basically,
Sure.
what we're doing is we're watermarking it. And there's a couple of small little
Yeah, it showed
changes
here.
that they've made. But yeah, you'd be hard pressed to tell the difference.
Okay. Can you make it mission impossible so it like disappears or disintegrates after 60 days? I'm just
That would be interesting. So just click on it and you see a little smoke bubble go up, and we're sorry,
You just click on the file and it goes
we're sorry, Ethan, you were too slow.
right. With sound effects.
I'll put that into the upgrade request, Donna. Gotcha.
Perfect.
Yep. Little animated. Perfect.
And we also have Ryan Patrick here now.
Oh, Ryan joined us.
Oh, Ryan.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right. So we've got, I know
Cool.
that was one of the other advisories that we had here was to talk about the Georgia Cyber Center. Was
Why
that
do I
the-
not see Ryan?
I'm mysterious, Dennis.
There
I
you
am
go.
like,
Well, now I see
I'm
you.
like the
Weird.
report. I will
Yeah.
disintegrate here momentarily.
All right. So Ryan, they were poking me earlier about the CMS program for the rural hospitals. Do you want to expand? Sorry, Donna, or sorry, Susan. I don't want to take your line.
No, you're fine. That's actually the
Um,
advisory I have up here right now. So yeah.
They were asking me some questions, and I said you'd probably be better suited to answer questions around this.
Yeah, so quick background is last summer 25, the big beautiful bill was signed into law, and as a part of that, CMS set aside about $50 billion to transform rural health. I think everybody on this call recognizes that the rural health community is in desperate times. They're in desperate needs. They're operating in the red in a lot of cases, only staying afloat because of, federal funding and state funding and things of that nature. So it doesn't leave a lot of resources to update to the latest technologies, to implement cybersecurity, to have, the latest and greatest from a patient care perspective. So this really, spreads across the spectrum on how they're struggling. And what really happens is if these rural hospitals can't stay afloat, they go out of business, and now citizens have to go well over an hour to the nearest hospital because that's how far away the next hospital is. So the government is investing to bring them up to speed and just provide better resources and better capabilities. And what the state of Georgia is doing, different from some of the other states. So just to talk about the other states for a second, is some of the states are basically going out to the rural hospitals and say, hey, we have this funding, submit applications to us to tell us what projects you would like us to fund. And each state was given, on average, about $200 million in this federal fiscal year. It's $50 billion over the 5-year grant. So you do the math, it's about $10 billion each federal fiscal year. So what Georgia is specifically doing is they're building a robust program. And I'm not going to talk about the patient care side of it, the interoperability side of it, and all this stuff that HITRUST really isn't involved in. We're primarily focused on the cybersecurity initiatives. So what the state did was they've asked the Georgia Cyber Innovation and Training Center out of Augusta, Georgia, which is aligned with Augusta University, to kind of administer the cybersecurity portion of this program. And they invited HITRUST in because they wanted to provide, using their words, a blueprint for good cybersecurity to these rural hospitals. So, to make a long story short, there's an entire program that's being built that's super, super cool. These hospitals are getting arguably millions of dollars worth of services, products, technologies at no cost whatsoever through this funding mechanism. And they've worked with partners like CrowdStrike, like HITRUST, and others to build a program that all the hospitals have to do is say, yes, we'd like to do this. And they get all of this stuff. And what's really, really cool is, and I think everybody on this call and probably those that will listen to this later can attest to, buying a technology is only, a third of the battle. Actually implementing it and managing it on an ongoing basis is actually where it proves its value. Well, what Georgia has done is they are using students from the university system within the state to augment the teams within these rural hospitals. So one of the partners is CrowdStrike. They're deploying CrowdStrike Falcon to every single endpoint in all the rural hospitals, 93 of them in the state. And then they're going to essentially monitor that out of the Georgia Cyber Center. And they're using students to go and deploy these endpoint technologies to each one of the endpoints within the hospital. So the IT director that is also the cybersecurity person, who's also the privacy officer, who's also doing risk management and everything in between, who doesn't have the time to do this, doesn't actually have to do it. They're just overseeing the students along with the cyber center, which is providing tremendous capability. It's really going to, in my opinion, revolutionize what these rural hospitals in Georgia can do. And I'm super proud to be a part of it because HITRUST is being used as the blueprint and, using the endpoint protection as the example. All of that is going to be used to satisfy the controls within the E1. So the starting point is the HITRUST E1 for these rural hospitals. Readiness and compliance, not validation and certification yet. So they go from E1 to I1 to R2, and then eventually, hopefully, to certification and beyond as they're able to improve and mature their program. So there is a 5-year plan and beyond in place for these rural hospitals. And as somebody who, was in the United States Army for arguably 20 years and now is in corporate America, like this one tugs at my heartstrings because I feel like I'm giving back. These are underserved communities that we are able to now help themselves protect themselves and do things that they wouldn't normally be able to do. So I'm going to get off my passionate soapbox here for a second and let you all ask me questions and just pepper me with stuff. I'm super passionate about it.
Just a question about the definition of a rural hospital. Is it a county-owned asset? Could it be a private entity that is, getting potentially state or county funding? I mean, how's a rural hospital defined, or is it really just the geographic location and the population surrounding it?
That actually is a question I don't have an
Oh,
absolute
okay.
specific answer to. The Georgia defined theirs specifically, and the target in the beginning, because we've been talking about this since October of 20, what year are we in? 26, in 25. It's just now getting off the ground, but that target kind of moved a little bit. The first number I heard was 86, and then it went down to 83, and now it's up to 93. So the definition, I think, was, I don't know if it was dictated by CMS. It was up to the states to kind of define that, is my understanding. But I've seen some privately held ones. I've seen some that are part of larger health systems. Some are state run. I think it really spans the gambit of what it possibly could be, but my guess is geography and the population it serves is
Population
probably
that's
a pretty big,
conserved, yeah.
yeah, big factor. All right.
Yeah, I know growing up in Kansas, we definitely fit into that because my nearest hospital growing up was a 45-minute drive, and that was, well, breaking the speed limit.
Yeah. So when we're talking about the rural hospitals, and maybe this is where I could use more of an education, are they all pursuing HITRUST? Aren't some of them too small don't have enough support to pursue HITRUST?
So, Ryan, you want me to take that?
You want to take a run at it, Dennis? I mean, I have the answer.
Yeah.
Well, no, go ahead. Go ahead.
So yeah, Jeff, they are too small.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like the IT person is like what I just said, security person, privacy person, risk management's probably
Yeah.
maybe even sweeping up at the end of the day type of thing. So they don't have the resources. That's why what Georgia has built is so genius. It's so marvelous that they're using these college students
Yeah.
to resource these organizations. And it's really a multifaceted win because the hospital gets resources that they don't have to pay for. So they can do more with what they already have because the state
Yeah.
of Georgia has come to the table providing resources at no cost. The students not only get access and experience with tools, frameworks, whatever. So they're gaining real world experience, but then they can also point to this on a resume and potentially go to work for these hospitals down the line, right? Like
Yeah.
it's so genius how they've built it because they're not only helping the hospitals, they're helping the citizens of Georgia, but they're also helping these students get jobs and be more marketable when they come out. And I can tell you, I've visited the Georgia Cyber Center twice now, and they are so focused on these students and making them people that they would want to hire, that the likes of the NSA and other like Secret Squirrel type of stuff, type of organizations are recruiting out of this pool of students because they are coming with so many experiences or coming with so much experience and knowledge that it's making them highly marketable. So it's a really, really cool program. I would love to replicate it. Like I'd love to pick it up and put it into each state because I just feel so,
Yes.
I feel it just is such a win all around that it makes sense to replicate it. So
No, I'm with you. You're actually talking about one of my passions. I don't like to push vendors or anything in particular. I did drop in a link to some folks called Pisces International. They are students just like you talked about, Ryan. So they are looking for gigs across the country. They're not in every state yet, but if you're looking for a group, reach out to some of my friends over there.
for sure. So Stephen, see your questions in the chat. How do we help? I want my home state of Texas to do it. Start knocking on the governor's door, start knocking on the Department of Health's door and tell them to come talk to me. That's how you can help and get us in the state of Texas. What are the plans for the other states? I've talked to a few states. Some of them are further along than others. I mean, Georgia has been really, really progressive, and I will tell you that they have owned. So the federal fiscal year turns over on October 1st. They've had these funds since December 31st. They have only just started onboarding hospitals in the last 30 days or so. We're moving at the speed of government, and everybody's working super, super hard. So there are some states that are, I think, are still playing catch up and trying to figure some of this stuff out, even though they have the funding available to them. I think because they didn't have the funding at the beginning of the federal fiscal year, the federal government is going to allow them to roll FY26 funding into FY27. There's a lot of, I mean, for all of us who have been in the government on this call, there's a handful of us. Having money crest different fiscal years is actually a really, really hairy thing. There's different colors of money, there's different shades of money, but apparently that's what they're letting them do because they lost 3 months in the beginning of the federal fiscal year. So I don't know. We'll see. I mean, I'd love to talk to more states. I don't have anybody right now that is so far along that they're replicating, but admittedly, the Georgia team, because the Georgia Cyber Center is a private entity. They are not a state agency. They can work with rural hospitals in other states. Now, they will probably not get the same funding, but what the Georgia Cyber Center is doing, they built this program that actually can scale to other underserved communities. Think county governments, school districts, water treatment facilities that which have been in the news based on certain nation state actors recently. These are underserved communities. They don't have the resources. They don't have the staffing or the funding to do this stuff. But the Georgia Cyber Center actually has a program to help them and it's like a cost sharing model. It's pretty cool stuff that they're doing. So there's ways to tackle it, whether through each state or leveraging what we already kind of have in our hands.
Excellent. And we've got Venkat on as well, and he's from India, so we're interested in that too. But what we can do is send Venkat, we can send you some information from these advisories and all of that. I don't know how it would translate to India, but definitely something that could be looked into.
Yeah, and the program is U.S. federally funded for states, so I'm
right,
not sure
yeah, for this, but very
correlation.
similar, yeah.
But from a programmatic standpoint, sorry to cut you off, Ryan. From a programmatic standpoint, yeah, there may be use there.
So I like to tell people, because this is somewhat confusing if you're not living and breathing it like I am on a nearly daily basis. So there's the rural hospital funding stream that the federal government, the U.S. federal government, has made available to the states. So the rural hospitals in the United States have a funding stream to do what Georgia is doing. Separately, but related, the Georgia Cyber Center has built a program that is nearly identical to what we're doing for the rural hospitals in Georgia that can apply anywhere on the planet. Now, the funding is a piece that has to be discussed, but again, I was just there in Augusta 3 or 4 weeks ago, and they have a slide. They showed me a slide of like 24 or 25 different services that they have available as part of this program. And I looked at the slide, and my initial reaction, because I have no filter, was, holy crap, this is like well over $1 million worth of services. And they were like, Ryan, you are spot on. And they were like, guess what? Guess how much someone would have to pay for that? About 10 to 15% of that price tag. Because everything is being negotiated with the vendors. Everything is being, from a labor perspective, being done by the students. So there's a lot of capability, and the program can extend beyond the Rural Hospital Transformation Program, which is being funded by the federal government. So will it work in India? I have no idea, but I would love to talk about it.
Ryan, for the U.S. side, are there also efforts to help hospitals and healthcare organizations improve their efficiency operationally so that they're spending their money really wisely? And most specifically, I'm targeting the questionnaire battle that has been years ongoing. But I ask because, larger organizations, if they're profitable, I suppose it's up to them how they spend their money. But where we're talking about smaller organizations, can we coach and guide? Is there an avenue to help them understand that engaging a vendor who has high trust could save time and money? It will inspire potentially other vendors to do the same, to make sure, I don't want to be too, focused on HITRUST. I know we're all champions here of HITRUST as, what it offers, but is there an opportunity to really help these organizations take a more efficient path?
For the rural hospitals specifically, I think the answer, and I'm hoping the answer is yes, just not right now.
Okay.
Right? If you think about the current state of where they're at, they don't have the tools, the resources, the time to be doing really anything that is not kind of turnkey for them. My goal is let's get them more mature, let's get them resourced, let's get them on the right path. And then because I believe so much in third party risk and vendor management and supplier management, all that stuff, I would like to talk to them down the line about how they can do things more efficiently and at the same time reduce risk, which is what you're exactly talking about, Donna.
Yeah.
To me, HITRUST is a huge part of that equation. I talk about it every single day. I just don't want to distract them from protecting themselves right
Sure.
now.
Sure.
Like, these hospitals are being harassed just like every large healthcare organization, and they don't have the resources. I mean, they're literally shutting down for days and weeks when they're getting hit with ransomware. They have to get better internally before they can start to worry about outside of their four walls.
Sure. I will throw out there that between AI capabilities out there at the moment, including ones with very strong security measures, it would not take a lot of time to map whatever questionnaire they have against any number of frameworks. So just for somebody thinking about it, that answer, the solution there is likely a little closer than a lot of people might anticipate.
I don't disagree with you. But just sitting on some of the calls where the Georgia Cyber Center is talking to these hospitals about their specific journey, like there's consternation on like the free stuff that's being given to them right now and not having the ability to execute based on the free stuff, right? So I totally agree with you. I want to have it happen. I think we just got to get them on the path, right? Because right now they're trying to deploy CrowdStrike. They're trying to do all this other stuff. They're trying to comply with the E1 for HITRUST. There's a lot of things on their plate. We just need to get through some of that before we can kind of
Sure.
expand outside the four walls.
Yeah, I mean, I can see even another aspect of this is all of the medical equipment and getting those up to speed and more resilient when it comes to putting some protections in, because the FDA has to approve any kind of medical device and it takes a really long time. And by the time it's approved, it's 10-year-old technology in some cases. And any changes to that technology requires not just a QA piece, but also a review again by the FDA. So I can understand, yes, get the endpoints and some of those operational tasks done first, and then maybe start looking at some of more of the medical equipment, because most likely those rural hospitals hold on to that equipment for even far longer than a urban area would.
For sure. It's a huge problem. I mean, even large health systems are struggling with that. So they're definitely struggling with it.
I was going to say, even your newest hospitals are struggling with, in some cases, there's just not another option for that technology because it's just so expensive to get it through the approval processes. The other thing, kind of a tangent to that, is, when you're looking at some of those things, kind of what is required for FDA approval, what is something that, you could similarly do the same function with. We know that a lot of the handheld devices now have capabilities that even 10 years ago you were only seeing in hospital settings. So kind of looking at your technology stack and maybe figuring out the best way to help them do the function at still with a high safety rate, but that doesn't require the high touch, high security controls behind it. That may be something that we may want to look at to help them out. I'm not the right person to fix it. That's way out of my realm.
No, it strikes me because my husband has a machine that will check eye pressure, and he bought one probably 4 or 5 years ago, and it was very clunky, and it required an Android to do all this, and it was kind of a almost a blind type of connection. And then there was a new version of that came out a couple of years later, but you're like, but we've spent $30,000 on this and it's still functional, so we keep it. It's like, well, yeah, there's this newer, more innovative one, but what do we do with this older one? And finding support for it is difficult. So I can only imagine when you're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on equipment and you've never recouped it, and you really can't afford, if you can't afford, a staff member to help with implementing endpoint security, you certainly can't afford another device replacement.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that, like Ryan said, that's one of the things that the Cyber Center has kind of figured out a really nice plan for, is massaging the needs of the rural hospitals with folks who are looking to get into that field, and at the same time, I think someone actually put in the comments, it's allowing the students and the learners a really good environment where they can learn to work with the tech team, with the leadership team, the C-suite team, get that experience. So the first time they meet the CFO, CEO, CTO, they're not like, dumbfounded with, this is the leader of the company or the organization or whatever. And it gives them that business comfort to go in and have those conversations and say, sir, man, this is the conversation we need to have. And I'm the person who has that knowledge. Let me explain it to you properly, right? And it gives them that comfort to where they can have those one-on-one conversations with the leadership teams as the known, kind of expert on that particular function. So I think it's a really good system.
Excellent. So one other question that came up with the third party HITRUST for TPRM conversation is that they were talking about how, there's other frameworks that don't get updated nearly as often as HITRUST does, and said something interesting. And I didn't call them out on it because it was a time constraint, but they said that there's already in the works at least another release planned for HITRUST this year. And I was wondering when that's coming out and what we're looking for. Or is it a new framework that's being added? Is there functionality? Can you talk about that?
Yes, I don't remember the date right off the top of my head, but kind of end of next month, you'll see another release come out. It's not going to be a major version. It'll just be a
so like 11.8.1 or something.
A dot
I think it's
version.
11.9.
11.9. Okay.
Yeah. I think end of September is when we're targeting that.
Okay.
And it'll have as usual, some control refreshing, reference authoritative source refreshing things like that.
Okay.
Yeah, I found out today that the AI controls are being updated because the speed of
nice.
AI is changing.
Yep.
Yeah, we're already out of date, and we're only 18 months into this, so
yeah,
that's being updated.
Okay. Yeah, because I'm looking at some of those AI controls for an I1 and kind of looking at, is it streamlining them or is it just replacing some that were there before? Because all of the controls I've seen have mostly been like risk management based AI controls.
Are you looking at the AI risk or the AI security controls?
Yeah,
AI security.
There's two sets.
Okay. In an I1, I don't think I've seen two.
There is two sets. One
Okay.
of them is listed as ISO 23894 NIST AI RMF.
Okay.
And then the other one is the HITRUST AI security controls.
Okay. Yeah, it was the security controls that I was looking at.
Okay.
You added it to the I1, you mean?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely going to be some risk management stuff, but you should definitely
Okay.
see some technical
ones. Okay.
security controls in there. And the updates, I don't have the updates in front of me, but from what I'm told at a high level, some of it's just phraseology.
Okay.
When we first released the standard, we used LLM like as a de facto kind of term. Nobody's using that really anymore. They're talking about agents. So we are updating from LLM to agents, just so we're staying, up to date based on the terminology. But there's also likely going to be some updates to the controls themselves because we're seeing the threat data month over month tell us what is being used to attack these models.
Okay.
So yeah,
well,
it's a combination of both.
That I think would help me, because if I'm relying on a third party for their AI? Is that really the HITRUST security, AI security, or would that really be more of the NIST AI risk that I should be looking at incorporating? Because we're not necessarily developing.
So ideally both, but
Okay.
more with the focus. If you're utilizing a pre-existing trained AI and you're not training the model, then realistically you want to be more concerned with the AI risk controls
Okay.
because you're not actually providing AI-enabled services.
Okay.
If you're providing AI-enabled services, whether that be results verification, results, review, restriction, things like that.
Okay.
If you go to HITRUST Assurance Advisory 2024-008, 2024-008.
Okay.
There's a really good flow chart in there. It talks about the AI personas
Okay.
and which types of personas. I still go to that. Like when I was working with folks who are looking at which one could, do I need to do, right? I still use it because it really helps the organizations to clarify, oh yeah, well we do this, but we do this.
Okay.
And so it's really simple, easy to, for the average person who doesn't live in AI, because let's face it, it's new for a lot of folks,
Yeah.
including myself, right? First time I heard LLM, I thought it was a double type, but
Right.
You're
like learning module.
Flow chart, yeah. So I thought it was
An
just
LMS.
learning
No, you mean an
yeah,
LMS, not an LLM.
But there's a really nice flow chart in that. Like I said,
Okay.
to this day, I still go
Perfect.
to it, reference it because it's really easy to use, and it actually defines the terms and things like that.
Okay.
Also, if you go to the HITRUST webpage and search or ask Erica for the AI Center, we actually have all of those resources in one place, easy to find. Just ask Erica. She's a chat bot on the main page.
Okay. Excellent. Yeah, so this is the second HITRUST quote unquote training I've done today, and the second thing I've learned. So this has been great.
Very cool. Very cool.
And
And
I would also suggest that where, specific clients are involved ahead of an assessment with an auditor, the auditor, especially if they've done an assessment for that company before, they're a great resource as to how that, AI should be incorporated and assessed, because they usually have a little context about the company and how it's used. So I would also encourage anybody who's listening to, turn to their assessors and look for guidance on how they need to include AI. Thanks, Ryan.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thanks, Ryan.
Susan, you're on mute again.
Oh, sorry. It's been a long day.
I thought it was me. I'm like, uh-oh.
No, sorry. But yeah, so lots of really good information. Does anybody have anything else they want to talk through? No? All right. Well, probably a good place to wrap up. I was going to talk about the insights reports, but I think that's probably something better suited for another week, another topic.
Yeah.
And the value from them and all that.
Yeah, let me know when you want to do those,
Okay.
and I'll be more than happy to expand on those.
Perfect.
And for those of you who haven't seen them really quickly at a high level, the insights reports are a deliverable that HITRUST put together so that instead of having to learn HITRUST technology and wording, it speaks to the reader and shows coverage relative to the authoritative source. So we have HIPAA, and you can include security breach notification privacy. We have NIST, we have HICP, we have I forget the Canadian standard, Canadian provincial province requirements. There's a number of different ones available, and we have actually examples of all of them on the main page, so you can go through, take a peek at it.
Susan, we drop the link in here, and maybe we can all kind of get up to speed on it before we talk about it.
Perfect. I will do so. Yeah, I'm just looking at the screen right now, but
yeah,
I will definitely include this in here right now.
It's interestingly when that first insights report came out, the first one we did was HIPAA. There's a really nice flow chart in there. So for people who aren't intimately familiar with HITRUST and specifically HIPAA, a lot of people don't understand kind of how many different pieces of the technology and the infrastructure and the organization HIPAA covers, right? Because the definition is the Portability Act, right? But inside of that, there's the HIPAA security rule, right? And then the different, protective requirements for data exchange for EPHI. There's a really nice graphic that they put in that one. It's one of my go-tos. It's about halfway through the report, but it actually shows relative to HIPAA what that assessment covers and doesn't cover. And it's a really nice, it's one of the best I've seen because it just really narrows it down. But it's kind of a block diagram. It's on like page 5 or 6 or 7. It's halfway into the report. You're on mute again.
Sorry, let me do share.
Did you find it?
Yeah. So you've got the Insight scorecard, basically. And I remember the scorecard. So yeah, it's fully covering. And then there's some of them, like this one. It's not looking
but there's
at.
Yeah, but
Is
if
it
you,
that one?
Susan, if you keep scrolling down, keep scrolling down.
Okay.
That's not the one I'm
Okay.
thinking of there yet.
Page 20 maybe?
Or it may be, no, there it is, right there.
Okay.
That diagram right there. I really like that because it helps organizations understand you can't say a blanket, I'm HIPAA compliant, I'm HIPAA certified, I'm, insert wording here.
Right.
This helps organizations truly understand what they've attested to, where they have coverage, where they don't have coverage. And I think this diagram can be kind of an eye opener if you haven't dug in. And let's face it, there's too many things to dig into nowadays. If you don't have time to dig into HIPAA, it's a very large regulatory piece. But this really helps people understand and kind of get an appreciation for what the testing covers, what it doesn't. I envision something like this,
Which is pretty small that it only is covering these.
It does
and
look
privacy,
small.
I mean,
it does look
HIPAA
small.
privacy is huge in HITRUST. I mean, there's a lot of controls in there, and it's like, oh yeah, that's one of these.
Privacy actually has the most number of HIPAA controls, but it's interesting. I saw a really nice diagram that Microsoft put together for agentic AI, very similar to this, and it showed the different pieces of AI use that you should consider for your organization. Let me see if I can find it. I don't think we've got it on the webpage, but it really breaks down like, the use of AI, the different things you should consider as part of your organizational profile, organizational risk acceptance, fair use of AI, discriminatory AI, all these different things that, like, as someone new to that type of a learning sphere, you don't even know to think about it, right? I was looking at some of those things, and I've been knee deep in this for 3 years now, and I'm just like, that's good. Let me see if I can find it, and I'll share it with if I can. I'm pretty sure it's a public document. If I can share it, I'll send it across for you to share with readers or listeners rather. But it was really neat, especially like if you don't work in that, kind of vertical of AI adoption, kind of the logistics and the legalities and the technicalities of AI.
Yeah, very interesting. Excellent. Well, thanks everybody for another episode of HITRUST Secrets, and we will be back next week.
All right. Appreciate everybody's time today.
Bye.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe to